Hello there, and welcome to this episode of Fish for Fallen Light. My name is Dan Vera, and this experimental podcast is about me speaking with poet and writer friends about their favorite poems. I'm coming to you today from Washington, D.C. I'm recording this, at the end of the 9th week of shutdown due to COVID-19. And you're probably, if you're seeing this fresh, you're seeing this on the 10th week of the shutdown. Not sure if you can hear the birds outside or a plane flying overhead. I'll carry on. Anyway, this podcast, as I say, is an experimental podcast. I told myself I would wait until the 10th episode to stop calling it that. But if you've been with me, you have learned or you've seen my learning curve, long and short as it is. I didn't know exactly what was involved in creating a podcast, and I'm still learning. But if you've seen some other episodes, I thank you for hanging in there with me. Some of the visual problems and audio problems that I've had to deal with as I was learning how to put one of these together. Anyway. I want to thank all the poets who've been on, Sheila Black, David Campos, Lupe Mendez, Greg Shapiro, Lorianne Guerrero, Marilyn Nelson, and today I'm joined by a very old friend of mine, Teri Ellen Cross Davis. Teri and I have been in a writing group together. She is really a tent pole in the community here in DC. She's one of the finest curators of poetry programming. She runs one of the oldest poetry reading series in the country, the O.B. Hardison series at the Folger Shakespeare Theater here in DC. So it's a true pleasure to be joined by such a knowledgeable and good friend. Teri brought us a poem by the poet I, and we spoke a little bit about the poem and also about the poet, her relationship with the poet, and some aspects of this poem that seem very helpful for the times we're living in. Anyway, I'm going to get out of the way, and we'll get to poetry and to Teri. Hi, Teri.
Hi, Dan.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm hanging in there in the supreme surrealness. I just coined that, I guess. Thanks for taking part in this little experiment. You're one of the first people I wanted to talk to about favorite poems, and I'm glad I get this opportunity to ask you to share a favorite poem of yours. What's the poem you wanted to share today?
I wanted to share Eyes, the Kid. It comes from her 1978 Lamont Poetry Selection winner, The Killing Floor.
Right.
And I have to say, when I read the book, it's one of the rare poetry books I read from front cover to back cover in one sitting,
Right.
Which was about maybe 13 or 14 years ago that I read it.
Yeah.
It blew me away. And this poem is a poem I teach and come back to all the time because it shows me the miracle of persona and how much you can do with persona and how it doesn't have to be tied to you per se. And it allows these characters to kind of flow through you in a poetic way that has inspired me to this day and is the origin behind how I've written these new goddess poems and other poems where I can just kind of dive into different aspects of my personality and blow them up large and have fun with it and not feel as if I have to be beholden to this truth that is my real life. So all that to say, I guess I should read it, huh?
Yeah, it'd be great. Thank you.
The Kid. My sister rubs the doll's face in mud, then climbs through the truck window. She ignores me as I walk around it, hitting the flat tires with an iron rod. The old man yells for me to help hitch the team, but I keep walking around the truck, hitting harder until my mother calls. I pick up a rock and throw it at the kitchen window, but it falls short. The old man's voice bounces off the air like a ball I can't lift my leg over. I stand beside him, waiting, but he doesn't look up, and I squeeze the rod, raise it, his skull splits open. My mother runs toward us. I stand still, get her across the spine as she bends over him. I drop the rod and take the rifle from the house. Roses are red, violets are blue, one bullet for the black horse, two for the brown. They're down quick. I spit, my tongue's bloody. I've bitten it. I laugh, remember the one out back. I catch her climbing from the truck, shoot. The doll lands on the ground with her. I pick it up, rock it in my arms. Yeah, I'm Jack, Hogarth's son. I'm nimble, I'm quick. In the house, I put on the old man's best suit and his patent leather shoes. I pack my mother's satin nightgown and my sister's doll in the suitcase. Then I go outside and cross the fields to the highway. I'm 14. I'm a wind from nowhere. I can break your heart.
That ending.
Yeah.
So how long has the poem lived with you? You said you came across it, was it 15 years ago?
Like 13 or 14 years ago, soon after I started at the Folger Shakespeare Library. And ever since then, it's stuck with me.
Right.
It's so graphic in its display of violence, and so obvious that it's not I, you know, and it's so free in its violence and its association from the idea of this child doing this to the quick rhyme of roses are red, violets are blue.
Right.
And then, you know, to bring in the nursery rhyme and then the quick rhyme, they're down quick and I spit, my tongue's bloody, I've bitten it. And all these moments that become so poetic in the poem. So ever since I read it, it was as if a door inside me opened up and said, you can do this. You can access all parts of you and blow them up large and live in poetry, even if it's not how you are every day.
Right. Yeah. Just the possibilities that are possible, that are available.
Exactly. So I've never forgotten it. And I often tell people about this poem as an introduction to poetry, to say there are so many ways poetry can exist in the world. And this is one of them that I bet you would never expect, you know, for those people who are looking for, you know, sonnet, you know, 115 or something from Shakespeare. But like, that's poetry. And so is this.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's interesting. You know, we think about sort of books and poems that just, it's almost kind of like as you say, like a doorway just opens. I mean, so many, for me, so many books of poetry were, well, you know, used bookstores, you know, because, you know, that's how I couldn't afford to buy sort of like new books or even know about them, but just to actually be able, and I remember sort of coming across Killing Floor. And, you know, that's why I'm so thankful whenever, I mean, you know, praise independent bookstores, especially now, but also use bookstores because, you know, I think for many of us, you know, it was just sort of a way that we could sort of browse and just sort of kind of discover and you know, these books that just kind of like, I'm thinking for me, I remember right out of college, it was a book by Neruda, who I didn't know anything about, but I just it was called The Book of Questions, and I described the language in that book. It's funny that you use door opening, that it's kind of, it's that moment, I can't remember when, but it was sometime later that I described it as like in The Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy opens the door and suddenly it goes from being black and white or sepia, you know, to being like glorious technicolor, you know, and then you're like, oh my God, like you had no idea language could do that. Or, what just happened? So yeah, to sort of kind of lift up those poems. You say you've taught this poem.
Yes.
How's the poem changed for you, or the way? I mean, has it changed in as far as sort of like the aspects you've changed teaching it, or I'm just sort of...
It's really changed in how I look at it, in that now there's another avenue into the poem, because I'm talking and teaching kids who are post Columbine. So
Right.
all of a sudden, this idea of a violent teen is not an anomaly. It's not this wild thing, which it was to me the first time I read it. Even though that was in itself post Columbine, but we weren't at the point where we were having regular shootings at high schools or in primary schools, as we think about Connecticut. And so all of a sudden now, this poem has this eerie significance and weight that it probably could have had before, but I just wasn't aware of it as much. I wasn't as emotionally in tune to it at that point as I am now. And when I read it and taught it in this past year, it was just really interesting to see kids respond to it, because I could hear in their response, like, oh, this isn't a new idea.
Right. Well,
but
commonplace.
Such a violent kid, but the idea that you could do something like this in poetry was still new.
Right.
So it's like this weird, multifaceted stone, not quite a gem, but just so many different ways, or maybe like a gem, because you just turn it and turn it and turn it, and you get different views into it, and different light shines out. So this poem just always, I will never shake this poem. And I had a story with because I kept trying to get her to read for my series.
Oh, at the Folger, right?
Yes. So I would call her and we would have these long conversations.
Wow.
Because I was trying to talk her into like coming to DC, and she was like, I'm not leaving Oklahoma on a plane. If you can find me a train, I might do it. So I was trying my best to talk her into coming to the Folger and taking trains. It never worked, but she was always down for the conversation and the call. So
wow. How many conversations do you think you had with her, Teri?
At least I would say 3 or 4. Yeah.
Wow.
It got up there. It for me, like, but the thing was, they were long. Like we didn't get off the phone.
Wow.
So
did you ever have a chance to meet her in person, or?
No, never did.
Wow.
I wanted to, because I think much like the first time I met Lucille Clifton and my knees began to buckle. I think my knees would have buckled, because she opened up so much for me in the idea of what persona poems could do. And I mean, now, we talk a lot about the work of Patricia Smith and Blood Dazzler. Yeah, but this was the first one for me that did it. And just the idea that I could inhabit a voice that might be like a breeze coming through me and not settling, but just coming through, was empowering and allowed my creativity to just really reach out there.
Yeah. I think I told you when we were setting this up that I'd spoken to Marilyn Nelson, and the poem she shared was Martín Espada's Alabanza. And it was great to sort of, have her read that and sort of talk about it. But she was reading it, I couldn't help but hear sort of Martín's voice reading, because I've heard him sort of read that poem. I'm curious, having spoken to if you hear her voice in it, or if you hear her, I don't know. I mean, if talking to a poet, even in this case, one you haven't met, you certainly have met sort of over the phone and in conversation, and in some cases that's even more than most people get in person. So I'm just curious, sort of, if that changes maybe the resonance of a poem that's so close to you.
I think a little bit it does, because I'll try my best to put this into words. There's like a grainy like a granular structure to the poem because I can kind of hear her voice a little bit in my head. But more than anything, I can feel just the expansiveness within the poem, and from understanding that she was just this one woman in this one space, but all the characters that came through her. There's another poem in this book, The Expectant Father. And, you know, there are so many other persona poems in this book and in Vice as well, that I read after, you know, after this one, that I realized that you can, you know, it's like a Whitman thing. You can hold multitudes, right? And you can acknowledge that through poetry. And so in terms of like her actual voice, I can distantly recall it. But more than anything, I do remember hearing her laugh because she was really, I think she felt, you know, maybe she was pleased that I would keep calling and keep trying to get her. And she kept, we'd had this conversation where she didn't feel like she was as relevant. And I was like, really? How is that possible? That you don't feel as relevant? Because you're rocking my world and you're doing this every day. I'm picking up your book, you know? And that's such a good question, Dan, because it really has me thinking more and more about it, and just more about the impact that a poet can have, and they'll never know, right? She'll never know that we're talking about her. I mean, she's gone, but at some point you put so much into the work, and it takes on this life outside of your own life, outside of the end date and the start date of your own life. It still lives and it still breathes, and it still tells me, Teri, you can write poems about goddesses that are angry, that torture men, that do these things, and you can do it, and it's okay. So to hear that voice telling me it's okay, it means I guess I'm still hearing her. So yeah.
It's a wonderful way to sort of cap it off. I'm so glad you sort of kind of shared that poem. I know I've been asking people, it seems to be a podcast feature, to ask if people have anything to plug, and you've got some very exciting things developing. Anything you want to tell people about?
Oh yeah. So I mentioned these goddess poems. The goddess poems are in my next book, A More Perfect Union, which should be coming. Yes, you know, straight from the Constitution. And it should be out in February of 2021. And I'm really excited about it. It won the Ohio State University Journal Charles B. Willer Poetry Prize for 2019. Yes. Yeah, thank you. And I'm, you know, I've been for a second book, and to have these poems, and like there's a goddess poem that will be out in the Kenyon Review in the fall.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm excited about that too.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to Kenyon College at one point. So. I'll take the Kenyon Review.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And the Folger program, where's that at? I guess y'all are planning for the fall, or?
Oh yeah. I might, let's see if I can. Yeah, there it is. Those books, brief glimpse that you saw of those books, those are some of the books I'm reading, which includes Martina Spada. Oh. Yeah, because I came across a Martina Spada poem and I was like, whoa, I need to come back and reread more. But yeah, I'm in the, you know, with the coronavirus, we had to postpone or actually reschedule our May reading with Billy Collins. So that'd be next May at the National Gallery of Art. And we're in the process of making the Terrence Hayes reading a virtual reading. He's recording something for us now, and we'll have that available to people very soon. And then I'm reading for next season, moving forward with next season, because I never stop having ideas of how to present poetry in different ways to people. I don't think I'll ever stop having those ideas.
That's great. How many years have you been there, Teri? I'm trying to remember.
It'd be 15 years this October.
Wow, 15.
I know. That's like you know, a teenager.
Yeah.
Exactly. But and every year I feel like I have different ideas in there. I never have enough slots to fit everybody in for everything that I want to do. And I have some interesting ideas for next season already. including a visitation to Abraham Lincoln in poetry, because that's
Oh,
happening a lot. A lot of people
interesting.
writing about Lincoln, and I think I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
why. We want our great uniter, um,
Hmm.
as the country is falling apart.
Why would that be? Why?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're all, pining for someone who can pull us all together and show us a future we can believe in. And other things, I'm looking to do. Yeah, I'm looking to do a lot of fun readings in some fun locations if we ever open back up. And I'm not pushing that we open up too soon, because I care more about people
Right.
than I care about anything else. But I love the fact that poetry can present itself in so many platforms, and
Mhm.
I'm willing and able to pivot to those platforms if need be.
Great. Well, thanks for talking to me, Teri. This has been lovely. And we'll be in touch.
Yes, thank you for having me, Dan. This was great. I can talk about I anytime.
We'll take care.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.
Well, that was fun. I want to thank Teri Ellen Cross Davis for joining me on Fish for Fallen Light and sharing that wonderful poem by I. I think during this lockdown, shutdown, whatever you want to call it, as many of us are imagining other realities, other alternative lives, narratives, looking at a poem like that, really is helpful in helping us step into other shoes and write beyond what we're experiencing. Anyway, thanks for joining in. I did want to say that I know some places are beginning to open up, and I do hope that you are well or taking good care of yourself and others. I want to end the way that I've ended all these podcasts by reciting the short poem by Pablo Neruda, my kind of life poem, one of the last poems he wrote. It's in a volume called Sea and the Bells, Mari las Campanas, and it goes like this. If each day falls inside each night, there exists a well where clarity lies imprisoned. We must sit at the rim of the well of darkness and fish for fallen light with patience. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for your patience in joining with me. And be well. Take care of yourself. Let's find new ways of taking care of one another. Okay. Bye. That's what I said. And then he said, I didn't say pentameter. I said hexameter. I know. It's just crazy. Oh, can I call you back? Okay. All right. Yeah. I forgot to give you the secret writing prompt, didn't I? Let's see. I have it written down here somewhere. Okay. The secret writing prompt is the letters B, F, G, M, Y. The vowel is E. The color is orange. And the number is 3. Go to it. That's what I said. And then he said, I didn't say pentameter. I said hexameter. I know. It's just crazy. Oh, can I call you back? Okay. All right. Yeah. I forgot to give you the secret writing prompt, didn't I? Let's see. I have it written down here somewhere. Okay. The secret writing prompt is the letters B, F, G, M, Y. The vowel is E. The color is orange. And the number is 3. Go to it.